of you had the opportunity, I should say, I guess, of climbing those stairs up to his office? Okay.
The smell, don't forget the smell.
The smell? I don't remember the smell. I do remember the shots when you had those needles. Were they bigger back in those days? I think they were, because now you go, and I mean, I was terrified back in those days. But anyway, welcome. This is put on by the Kanab Historical and Historic Preservation Board. We do this Back When series. This is about the 4th or 5th one we've done, and it's been a lot of fun. So welcome, and I know you're interested in Dr. Aiken because he has been a tradition in southern Utah for years and years. So to start with, I'd like to introduce you to the board, the governing board. Our chair is Joyce Bush. Joyce? She really keeps us alive. And a member is Emily Bentley. Emily is back at the back. She's actually the director of the museum. She does a lot of our technology. I'm a member of the board. My name is Spencer Young. Glazers. Did I see Glazers?
They're next door with grandkids.
They're next door with grandkids, so let's hear it. No. So it's Mary and Kevin Glazier, Niall Willis, and Susan Erickson here on the front. And we have our distinguished panel here. Oh, Chris. Chris is our timer. Chris is our city liaison member. And he does keep us in, well, anyway. So on our panel, we have Maggie Browning, Lily Button, a granddaughter, right? And Sam Aiken, grandson. And so we'll be hearing some great things from them. So basically, we have a couple extra questions for Sam and for Maggie. And then 3 general questions we'd like each one of you kind of respond to, if you would. And those questions are, what was your relationship to Dr. Aiken? What do you remember about him? And then what were some stories or experiences that he or a family member shared with you regarding Dr. Aiken? So if you would just keep those in mind, and I'll remind you as it gets to your turn. So Maggie, we're going to start with you. Do you have a mic there? And what we'd like you to do is tell us why Dr. Aiken decided to settle in Kanab. And then the 3 questions are your relationship, what do you remember about him, just any stories. We'll give you about 10 minutes and just watch Chris back there.
Or Ellie.
Okay, all right. You just jump up and down when it's time. Okay, thank you. Okay, Maggie?
I'm not used to this, but it's not on.
A little button.
There we go. As far as I know, the reason that, first of all, most of you called him Doc Aiken and I called him Grandpa.
A little closer.
Most of you called him Doc Aiken, but I called him Grandpa. And he was a good grandpa. And don't get me crying, but, okay, so my grandma had bad health, and she had a sister in Las Vegas. And so the doctor told her to move to a warmer climate. And so they went to Las Vegas. He then went up to Hurricane. He was quite an adventurer. And so in Hurricane, they lived in the Bradshaw Hotel. And upstairs, you can find his really hospital bag that he made house calls with. This one on the corner is just a facsimile that's not really his. So, but all of you who had house calls, sorry I'm shaking, remember him in his hospital bag, and he'd open it up and get out the syringe with the great big needle. Anyway, I digress. So, ended up in Hurricane. They ended up actually building the Navajo Lodge. The trail horses up from Hurricane over through the Zions and up to Navajo Lodge. This was the 30s, no, the 29s. Sorry. You want to hold the mic for me because I'm shaking too bad. Thank you. And he and Grandma ended up going back to Ohio where they were from because he was going to work there. Well, it was just before the Depression, and while they were there, and then the bottom fell out and there were no jobs in Ohio. So Grandpa came back. His first office was the corner office at Perry's Lodge. The corner room, yeah. And he would practice there, but he made house calls all the way up the valley. And that was mainly why he stayed. He was very good friends with Perry. And so that was his connection to Kanab. And the rest is kind of history. So, next question is, what was my relationship with my grandpa? Sam and I were talking about this to go over, and he said that he thought he was the favorite grandchild, and I said no, I was the favorite grandchild. I'm the eldest of his grandchildren, and so I got spoiled rotten. They actually took me a lot of places. I remember going to Yellowstone when I was probably about 4 with them, and they had a all blue Chevy truck. Well, I don't know if it's Chevy or not, but it had a camper shell, and they made a hammock for me, and went to Yellowstone. They just took me fishing and just did a lot of things with me. At that time, they lived next door. Actually, they lived where the swimming pool is at Aiken's Lodge. And in about 1950, do you know the dates, when they moved the house? The house is now up 144 North Main. And Junior, Lenore's brother, her son, is living there now. Okay, so my relationship with Grandpa is he gave the best shots. I would not let Louise Bell give me a shot.
I second that.
And and the reason the needles were so big is it was penicillin was very thick. And so they had to have a big needle, and you felt it. I love Grandpa tons, spent lots of time with him. He was a good man. They'd cook breakfast on Sunday mornings. He'd make pancakes, and we always would, well, not always, but in the early years we'd go over and have pancakes with him. He always scolded me because I didn't eat my vegetables. And on the trip that we went to in Yellowstone, I remember very vividly that he got really grumpy with me because I wouldn't eat my vegetables. And so then he was going to go fishing, and I was pouting. And so I asked him if I could go with him, and he said, okay. So anyway, I went with him, and I asked him if I could get some Fig Newtons. And he said, you didn't eat your vegetables. And I said, well, you just gotta love me, Grandpa, that's all. So anyway, I was very spoiled and very manipulated. Anyway, okay, what do I remember about him? In the early years, I remember him smoking cigars and pipes. He cussed a little. He had a very colorful language. And he was always good to tell a story. He had so many adventures, and he always had good stories to tell. I remember he never stopped. After he He was instrumental in getting the Heritage House in 1976 when it was a centennial. He talked the city council into purchasing the building, and I think it was like $20,000. It was originally Judy McAllister had lived in it at that time. And anyway, so 4th of July, it was 114 in Kanab. And I stopped by to see Grandpa, and he was in the kitchen, sitting on a stool without his shirt on, and he had sweat just running down his face and down his back, and he was making apricot jam. And he raised apricots at the Heritage House and sold the jam to raise money for the Heritage House. So as you can see, he was never stopped. One of the other things I remember about him is down in the basement, he had one of the workmen, and I'm not sure who was the workman, cut out. He got a copy of the old fence posts that were rotting away, and he got a man to copy and cut them all out. In his basement, he had stacked up on a table, and he had hammers and chains, and he antiqued them all and stained them all. Okay, so my last one is, let's see, what stories of his experiences did he share with me? About all of them. We heard him so many times that we can tell them all to you, but one of the things that I think is most interesting that he told was when he was in the Navy. He went in as a lieutenant colonel, a what?
Lieutenant Commander.
Lieutenant Commander. And one of the stories that he would tell is that he was on this LSD that all these young men were like 18, 19 years old that had just joined the service. And he was in his 40s. And he said he came up out of the hatch, and one of the young men that was going down in said, "Oh my God, you're old enough to be God." So that's one of the stories. Okay, who's next?
Okay, thank you so much. I'm glad you mentioned about the needles, why they were so big. I was talking to Grant Ramsey, and he said, I remember going up those stairs, and I saw that needle. I ran downstairs, hid underneath the truck, and my mom had to drag me out under the truck so I could go up and get my, anyway. Sam.
They still use big needles for penicillin.
They do?
Yeah, well, but they don't usually inject penicillin anymore. We've got the
They
pill
do
now.
sometimes.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
okay.
And by the way, the Doc Aiken story is in this. If you don't have one of these copies, and there's one like this, you can get them online. Matter of fact, Kevin Glazer, we were having a meeting, and he got on his phone, and before the meeting was over, he had one coming. These are really interesting. It tells a little of everything. I mean, Dr. Aiken wasn't just a doctor. He'd go out hunt wild horses, all kinds of things. So get that book. And then here's these I think are up to the hospital, is that right, Joyce? We'll put this out on the table, some of the memoirs and some of the newspaper clippings. So these will be available to look at after. So Sam, you're up. You see that you know the 3 questions, but one other question. I was driving around Kanab and I looked at this huge building that's under construction. That is the new hospital, surgical center. Have you seen that? And we had that beautiful hospital. That is not what it was like when Dr. Aiken came to Kanab. What help did he get building that hospital, Sam? Do you know?
I don't know, but it was from the whole community. Is this on? Yeah. He was rejected by the city and the county commission to contribute funds to build a small hospital. And he was rejected. You can read that story in his book. And, but he had done a lot of work, doctoring throughout the community and had not been paid. He would take an IOU, you know, and oftentimes he would take a chicken, a horse, or a dozen eggs for his services. Or some venison, backstrap preferred, I suppose. Anyway, but he received his patients by someone would need a doctor and would send someone to Dr. Aiken that he would need to drive out to their house. And they would also put a white sheet out on their fence. Dr. Aiken would see the white sheet and know that he was needed at that house. So, can you imagine practicing medicine without the wonderful drug of penicillin? That did not come manufactured plentifully until World War II. And it was available to the wealthy prior to that, but it was manufactured in such small quantities that they couldn't offer it to the masses. And you can read about the history of penicillin, it's very interesting. And so, yeah, it was the university, either Yale or Harvard, I think, developed a way to mass produce penicillin. And that's why it was available in World War II. So, questions? Yeah, what kind of help did he receive? And also people would, he would give his medical services to people thinking that he was going to get paid his $25 for an appendectomy or a tonsillectomy or whatever. And then they would hand him a piece of paper that he had signed because they had done work on the hospital, and Grandpa had given them an IOU for future medical services. So it went both ways. So he said it was rather disappointing to him when he got one of those notes. But he was a colorful guy. He did swear quite a bit. Do you want me to go on to the next one?
Go ahead, yeah.
So my relationship with Dr. Aiken as a grandson, and likewise with my sister Maggie, he took myself and my brother, and myself and my cousin Robbie, Uncle Bob's adopted son, on several fishing trips. We explored Idaho, Wyoming, Montana, Oregon, Washington, California, and we fished for salmon, for trout, and every fishing hole we could find we would stop at. And lots of fun with Grandpa. He would take 5 or 6 weeks off during our summer school break and just load us in his Airstream trailer with Grandma, and away we'd go. He had a station wagon at that time to pull the Airstream trailer. And so anyway, that's my relationship with him, and he really was a wonderful grandpa. Okay, so what do I remember about him? He swore plenty. He did smoke a pipe and a cigar, but he would always take us up to the Mammoth Meadows to fish, me and my brother, and I never let him smoke in the car because it made me car sick. So I don't think he liked that much. But, and then the one story that I want to share with you, kind of give you an idea of who Grandpa was. He died at age 98. And around when he was 96 or 97, I sat down to have a heart talk with him. I wanted to tell him, and I said, Grandpa, now I want to talk to you about what's going to happen to you when you die. Your mortal body is going to be placed in the grave, but your spirit, which can never die, lives on. And you will go to the spirit world, where you will be greeted with great fanfare from relatives who have gone before you, patients whom you helped, and many other people who know you. And also, Grandpa, there will be Mormon missionaries there. And they will want to teach you the gospel. Now, Grandpa, I want you to listen to them and open your heart and mind to what the message that they have to say. And with a short pause, he raised and looked at me in the eye and he says, Sam, you mean to tell me those damn Mormons will be after me up there too? True story. He said, GD, not just Dan. He really had a great sense of humor and was a very brilliant man. And his accolades are just enormous.
Yeah,
I got to tell you,
We
we have
had,
time.
yes, we wanted to kind of let you know that he served in the legislature 2 terms. He was the mayor, he was county commissioner, he was very politically active. He was also a Democrat at that time. So, sorry. In this little Mormon community, it was quite an adjustment for him and for them.
Read your nose and tell him about his hobbies.
Okay, so he had fly fishing, he tied flies, storyteller, hunter, he hunted everything, from ducks and geese and
Sage hand.
and
Morning
everything else. So we also wanted to talk about how he was influential in getting the airport here, and the Heritage House, like we already mentioned. So, yeah, what have we got? Kind of made some scribbles.
Okay.
He loved people, really loved people. He served the people out at Moccasin, the Paiutes, and they had honored him over and over many, many times. So, sorry.
And the Navajo people too.
Yeah, oh yes.
And so, yeah, he was not prejudiced at all, especially when it came to doctrine. And, yeah, there are, I think that's, there was one more. About building the hospital, where's that at? That must not be on mine.
Just,
What is
you
the
kind of
next?
answered that. It was,
Yeah.
what help did he give
Oh, yeah.
building the
Yeah.
hospital?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
and then what made him want to build a hospital?
go ahead.
Isn't that one? So in his book, he tells a story of where he's making these house calls clear up the valley into Alton and out to Moccasin and wherever he was needed. Even out in the House Rock Valley, there's a story in his book about that. But he got stranded up on the sand dunes one cold winter's day, and the snow was deep. He got stuck in the snow, or his car quit, one of the two, I can't recall. And so he says, well, I better get a fire going or I'm going to freeze to death. So he built him a fire and went and gathered sagebrush and whatever he could find for a fire. And he kept going out and gathering and building a fire. And it dawned on him when he was out there pondering underneath this starlit cold night that that's exactly what he was doing. He was feeding someone else's fire by getting these patients and sending them to Cedar and St. George. And he says that it's just working him to death. And he says that's no way to do doctoring, he says in his book. And so he had this epiphany that he needed a hospital. And how many beds?
I am not
Seven.
sure. 7
I
beds?
think it started with 4. And the first night they had to borrow the nurses or something.
Oh, yeah.
They had one extra patient.
They had sleeping quarters in the basement for the nurses. And Grandpa and Grandma lived there too.
Yeah,
And
the whole family lived.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's great. It's awesome. To see where the hospital is today is just wonderful.
Thank you, Sam. And by the way, after Libby gets through, we're going to turn some time over to you guys so you can share some of your experiences with Dr. Aiken. So,
I've got one more thing.
okay, one more thing.
One more thing, sorry. So, we haven't mentioned Nana, Ruby Juanita. She was the anesthesiologist just in the early day, and she would administer the ether. And so she was very instrumental in supporting Grandpa and the community. So, anyway.
And one more story. So I was in line in the 4th grade to get some vaccination. I don't know what it was, but Kevin Glazier was behind me. And he says, "Who's giving the shots?" And I says, "It's my grandpa." And he says, "Oh, good. I'm so glad he's giving the shots. He gives the best shots."
Okay. Sam, I appreciate you getting a little bit emotional, because Dr. Aiken made me cry a few times. Okay, Libby, you have the questions there? So,
I have a question.
yeah, go ahead.
Okay, what was your relationship with Dr. Aiken? My mother married Dr. Aiken's son, his youngest son, Bob Aiken. They were married 34 years. So, and I had been in Kentucky living, and I came back out here from a rough divorce, and I moved in to kind of help take care of Dr. Aiken. And just got close to him. He was really kind, he was blunt, and sometimes rude. And he could make you cry pretty easy. But I spent a lot of time counseling with him, and he built my self-confidence back where it should have been, because I had lost that a lot. And so I just grew really close to him. And I had a lot of stomach issues then, and I remember him telling me, he said, "Okay, sit down and write down what you've ate for the day, and then tell me how your stomach feels." And I wrote down everything, and he looked at it, and he said, "Well, that's your problem." He says, "Constipated," and he said, "You're eating like a bird, and you're wanting to poop like a horse." But he didn't say that. And so he said, "You've got to start eating more," because I was not eating enough apparently. So anyway, and then I remember one time we were sitting outside, and there were a bunch of ants outside the door, and I said, "Look at all the piss ants." And he said, "Piss ants? What are those?" And where he'd been in Kentucky and Ohio, he had related that because he'd heard that there, that they were called piss ants. And then he taught me what au juice was, because he wanted roast beef and au juice, and I didn't know what au juice was. I knew au jus, and I'd go to Food Town, and I'd be looking for au juice, and I'd ask him, I'm like, "What is au juice? Like, I need to buy this for him, he wants this." And he wanted the little thin strips of roast beef, and I'd take stuff back. He says, "You are so dumb. Like, you don't even know what au juice is." So finally, I took him down there, he went with me, and he walked me right to it, knew right where it was. So I learned what au juice was, au jus. And I remember him telling me a lot of stories with his patients that he had, helped through the years. And I remember one vividly where he said he was going to Colorado City, and they called, and the patient had passed away. And he was going to go out and check on him, and they told him to wrap the body, and he would be on out there. And when he went out, the body came unwrapped or something, and the arms flew up. And the little girl that was there just mortified, just cried and was crying and crying. And he said they were trying to get the arms pushed down on the guy, push his arms down. He said, "I had a lot of experiences like that." But he told me about, like Sam said, just people paying with a loaf of bread, to pay for a birth or anything that he helped them with. But I know he loved his family. He was really proud of his kids. I know that my husband, every time I cut his hair, he says, "Dr. Aiken done this to me," because he has 2 big bald spots from his forceps where they brought him out. And so every time I cut his hair, he's like, "Dr. Aiken done that to me with the forceps." So anyway, we think about it a lot. And I don't know. He was really special to me. He touched my heart a lot, and
He was just a child when it happened, and I remember Grandma saying they took Dr. Aiken to their ice house that they all had, so he could pick up a quarter of beef or whatever to pay him for helping my uncle.
They actually went down to the smokehouse and picked out a ham.
Oh,
And so Dr. Aiken picked out the ham he wanted. That was his payment.
I wasn't going to do this, but I have to. My mother worked for Dr. Aiken. Her name was Afton. And Miss Bell used to scare the heck out of me. She didn't like me, I didn't think. But when I graduated from high school, she gave me a necklace. So I guess maybe she could tolerate me. Dr. Aiken was wonderful. He was so good to my mother and to me, and even to my dad. My dad suffered with a disease called alcoholism, and I can remember as a kid, mother coming home and giving my dad different kinds of vitamins because Dr. Aiken said that might save his liver. And my dad did not die of cirrhosis, so it must have done something. He called my mother funny. And she was, as I said, he was so good to her and so good to us. And I felt like I was part of the family. Thank you.
Dr. Aiken born me. When I was born, I had an ear that was turned down like this, and it just stayed there. And Mom said that Dr. Aiken would go down, push the ear back and say, oh, okay. You put it back down and it would stay. Just, I'll be damned. But the biggest thing I remember about Dr. Aiken is because I had sinus problems, is what he said. But every spring, Mom would take me up those big stairs, and I was just little, and he would stick this long tube up my nose like this, and I thought, how did that go all the way up there? But he would poke that with iodine or something and up my nose. Then I'd drip like this for an hour. And just lean your head over and drip. Well, I dripped a lot. But I remember doing that 2 or 3 years in a row. But you know what? I still have hay fever.
I'm not sure I can tell this story. Our mom was from Warrenville, and she was a Dr. Aiken fan. And this is the first that she had interaction with Dr. Aiken. When she was young, I'm not sure how old, maybe 19, 20, she had appendicitis. And she had to have her appendix out, and so they took her to Kanab, and by then there was, I guess, the oldest hospital. That would have been in, what, 1937 something. Anyway, so Dr. Aiken removed her appendix, but Mom had no money at all, no way to get any. And so Dr. Aiken said, you can work for me, and I will pay you, and you can repay me from the money that I pay you. But he let her keep some for herself, and he would give, and then she would give some back to him until her debt was paid. But she said he paid her the exact same wages that he paid his nurses, and he let her work off her debt that way. And I have lots of other Dr. Aiken stories, but I won't tell you anymore right now unless somebody else have a turn.
Dr. Aiken was our neighbor when I was growing up. His big house kind of set almost in our backyard, so we kind of, and Bob was the same age, so we kind of ran back and forth through the lot. But But it was his fault that my third baby was a boy. He wanted to go fishing. And my due date was right when he wanted to go fishing. So my last checkup, he was trying to finagle away where, well, I think maybe we could just, and back in those days, there wasn't pit, it was castor oil and quinine. So he finally talked me into it by that, by then he wanted to get it over with anyway. So he wrote out the prescription and I took it down to the pharmacy. Neil Crosby was the pharmacist there. So I gave it to him and in 10 minutes he brought it back out to me and I walked out and got in the car and as I looked at it, there was the little bottle of quinine, then there was a little white envelope that had it was the oil, castor oil. Then there was a little white envelope with the quinine in. And on the outside of it, he had written, boy baby. I already had 2 boys. And following that, I had 2 more. So. Anyway, he was a friend as well as a neighbor. And yes, he was gruff, and sometimes I remember calling him one night at 2:30 in the morning. My mother had had her tonsils out, and she was hemorrhaging, and my dad was hard of hearing, so he couldn't use the telephone. So they dragged me downstairs to call. I don't remember how old I was, but I don't know, probably early teen or something. Anyway, I called him on the phone, and of course, after 3 or 4 rings, he answered right up, and I told him, Amanda McDonald is hemorrhaging, and we need you to come if you can come. And he said, good hell, can't you stop at my old nosebleed? But he came. And he also gave my dad a pair of glasses, a pair of his own glasses. He says, try these with and see if they'll help you. He was a great man.
I'm John Schreiber. About 70 years ago, I was about 9.
Hold the microphone.
About 70 years ago, I was 9 or something like that. And me and my brother Bill and Steve Edwards and my younger sister was 5, and we were supposed to be taken care of because Mom had gone to church. We were up by the city ditch, we were up by the graveyard up there. We were building a fort, and old Steve Edwards had an axe, and he shot this piece of wood and hit my sister right squarely, right, just right there. And I run down to the house and dial the operator, and next thing I know, out at the end of the street down there, I saw this car coming in a rooster tail. Here he comes down the road just as fast as he could run. He put a couple stitches, that was it.
I never met Doc Aiken, but I wouldn't be here without him. When he was starting the hospital, he advertised for nurses. And one of his little postcards of Kanab made its way to a nursing school in Alabama. My grandmother came out, she wanted to meet a cowboy. She wanted to see if the sky was really as blue. And she worked in that very first hospital and met her cowboy. And my grandparents had moved by the time I was born, but Kanab has been home, away from home for a long time, and now I live here, and I couldn't be happier, and without him, I wouldn't be sitting here today.
What was your mother's, or your?
Her name was Loretta Smith. She became Loretta Heaton, and I understand now why. She was from Alabama. She was a Southern Baptist. She was never Mormon. She had a mouth. She smoked cigarettes. I understand why they got along.
There were a few nurses that answered his advertisement and worked. ended up, married, there were quite a few, I think probably 2 or 3 nurses that came that answered that advertisement and ended up marrying local boys, and the rest is history. So, yes, and thank goodness, because I don't know if we had very many nurses, and he was in need. So, other than Nana, my grandma, she was a nurse. So, and that's how they met in Ohio at medical school.
Okay.
Going once, going twice?
I was about 4 years old and we had just moved to Kanab and I needed to have my tonsils out. So we went up to the brand new White House Hospital, and Nate gave me a little red rink, and I became wild. So I was not supposed to be the first patient, but I was, because they couldn't handle me.
Anyway, I know I've said too much, but I was hoping Warren Trees, how many people know Dee Dee Reese? Dee Dee Reese his life was saved by Dr. Aiken. I'm from Mortarville, and Dee Dee was with Roe Espen up in the muddy, on his tractor, fell off and the big tire ran over Dee Dee. Just about killed him. His ribs still aren't attached to his backbone. And a few years after Dr. Aiken had worked on him, he went in, he says, Dr. Aiken was talking to Dee Dee, he says, hell boy, if I'd known you were going to live, I'd have patched it up better. I would really like to thank our panel.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming and sharing. And if you have a chance to get the book, it is an excellent, excellent read. So let's give them a big round of applause.